it's Lisa with a photo today of my dad. It was actually taken on my mother's birthday on an outing, and so I've got some other pictures and another layout to do about that, but I thought it was a really good picture of my dad, and his favorite colors are blue and yellow. So he's wearing a blue shirt, sitting in front of this yellow flowering plant, and so I just thought it was a perfect one to do. I wanted a really happy collection for this. One of my cousins said one day, was talking about my dad, and he said, you know, his philosophy is always the glass is half full. And he really does, you know, sometimes you get some bad news medically and it bothers him for a couple of days, but then he bounces right back and he's going to tackle whatever it is and get through it. And he just has a really good attitude about everything. So I want something really positive and happy, and I have the Fine and Dandy 6x6 paper pad from Lori Whitlock. I bought this on sale last year, and I don't think I've used any of it, but it's got the perfect colors in here. So I'm going to pick out several of these papers. And one of the things I particularly liked is it had those little jars. So it kind of went with the glass half full kind of look. But we're going to use several of those papers on this sketch. And what I'm going for here is not quite a sunrise look, but a little bit of that where the papers are narrower at the bottom, wider at the top. And I want it to curve up. And this was sort of the best I could do in drawing with the computer to give you that curve illusion. I'm going to do my curve freehand. I'm actually going to kind of do that first to get a template to make sure I know, you know, what I'm going for here before I take all these papers and put those down. And then we'll use a little bit more of the paper up here at the top, and either butterflies or birds or something that kind of goes with this happy kind of page that we're doing with the journaling down here at the bottom. So it'll be a fun single photo page. This would be a good one for a larger photo if you had a 5x7, or if you wanted to turn the photo a different direction. You could do a lot of different things here because you've got quite a bit of space in the middle. Background paper is Bashful Blue by Stampin' Up. I still have a fair amount of that in 12x12, so I thought we would use it because it goes really well with the papers, and again, it's one of his favorite colors. So let's do the kind of the drawing and thing and pick out the papers and sort of go from there.
I'm using an old scrap sheet of designer paper. This is one of those really thin papers that I don't use all that much. Use them to line envelopes and for things like this where I need to make a pattern. And my first go at this is really just to see how it's going to look, if I can get the kind of effect that I want with that curve towards the right side of the page, and then I'm marking 3/4 of an inch over in increments over on the bottom line, and then drawing lines kind of randomly. I'm not trying to measure across that curve, just to get something to go by when I put my papers down there. Now I'm going to end up having to draw this a second time so that I'll have lines to go by, and you'll see that in just a few moments. But I have the curve shape, and I know that it's going to look the way I want it to look. Selecting papers. Some of these have pretty designs on both sides. I'm not doing a lot with the pinks. This is mostly the blues and greens and yellows. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to use this template, mark the curve, and I'm going to mark the bottom again. I'm finding where kind of the center of my curve is. And again, doing 3/4 of an inch increments across the bottom, getting that first sort of V-shaped piece. And you'll notice that my lines now go all the way to the edge of the page. And I need that because that's going to help me place the papers. I'm using a technique that you use in quilting for foundation piecing is really what I'm doing. It's if you do a foundation piece string quilt, this is kind of the way it goes. Except with fabric, you're sewing it on and you have a seam allowance, and it's a lot more precise. With the paper, I'm not worrying about all of that, but I still need something to go by. So what those lines are going to do is that's where my paper is going to fit against those lines on one side. So the first piece I'm just going to glue over the little triangular shape there in the middle, and then I need to be able to see the lines, the outside lines of the pieces next to it, and that's what I'll butt the paper up against. So I'm kind of putting my paper here in order of how I want to use it. intermingling the more solid tone-on-tone papers with the ones that have a lot more pattern to them. And I can't have them cut too wide because I need to be able to see the next line there to go by. And it's the line I'm actually going by is the one that's kind of sticking out at the top and at the bottom. So this is what keeps them straight and keeps them relatively equal distance going across. And I had to trim some off the bottom because I couldn't see the bottom line. I could see the line sticking out at the top above the curve, but I couldn't see the line below it to make sure that I was getting a nice even, or getting it lined up on top and bottom. Now the butterflies, I decided to make them so that they were straight or parallel with the lines that I was putting them on, not trying to make them straight up and down on the page. That was a whole lot easier. And so you're starting to see the shape kind of come together here. And I trimmed off the outside edges so I could just sort of put my original design over the top of this and then hand cut the curve. Now you'll really see how it's starting to come together. And the bottom is going to get covered up with some other paper where I have the journaling. Now I've got to do a round piece for the top, and I'm going to use circle cutters for this one. So I know I want to use the yellow paper, and I want to use those jars some more because I haven't done enough with the jars since that was something sort of my theme. There are a lot of stamps out there that have jar designs, but I don't have any of them. I did have a design on the silhouette. I'd forgotten about it though until I got this page all the way done. And I'd forgotten to use that stripe paper, but I have another use for the stripe later on as a border. Now we're using, of course, 6x6 pads for this. I have a class on doing 6x6, and I go a lot slower in my videos in the classes. There's a lot more real time for these techniques. We do one where we do a piecing kind of thing like quilting, and it makes a really pretty border to a page. But I do take a lot more time with the videos for those. I feel like these ones on YouTube, I don't think people want to sit through a 30-minute video of a particular technique. I may be wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong about that, but I think that we go through things a little bit more quickly, and most of the time it's more assembly on these pages than anything, but this one had a more specific technique. But I do have a class, and if you like 6x6 paper pads, there are so many things in that class, and I just love the layouts that came out of it. So I think that you will enjoy it. It's been real popular so far. And you can find information about that over on my blog. There'll be a link in the description for this video. And I'm piecing together the stripe papers. 6x6 paper, of course, doesn't go all the way across the 12x12 page, but stripes piece really well. And you never know usually that you've put those on there. That's my very last bit of my favorite trim that Stampin' Up! Ever made, that little yellow trim. I have it in some other colors, but that's the last of the yellow. I also did a little bit of sewing. I decided to just sew across the curve part and not try to sew down all those little seams, and I'm tucking the threads on the back with some washi tape. Now I would have really liked to have had some other colors in the lettering, but the only thing that I really had enough letters of was a lot of blues. For a while I didn't have any blues, and I've collected some blue thickers, so we ended up doing the glass is half full. I debated after I got this page done whether I should have said the glass is always half full. I don't remember exactly how the saying goes, so if you have input on that, let me know. I could probably still work the word always in there later on. And I went off looking for some other thickers, and I ended up still with the blue ones. And I'm going to use some of those round mini market stickers from October Afternoon. Sort of a last minute decision to put the title to curve it. It works really well with these foam thickers. The glitter foam ones, you can shape them, and I tore my S, but I'm piecing it back together so you won't really be able to tell it. Yeah, I could move is over and probably get the word always in there. But right now it says the glass is half full. And then there's a lot about that in the journaling that I printed on 12 by 12 paper that I trimmed down some so it would fit through my printer. And I'm going to stamp some embellishments here. This is a cute little set called, well, I can't remember what it's called. I'll have to put it on the screen. It's a Stampin' Up set. It's an older one with the birds, and I just love it. I've had it a long, long time. Okay, I looked up the name of the set. It's called Cheap Talk, C-H-E-E-P, cheap, 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 like a bird. And so it's really, really cute. Cheap Talk by Stampin' Up is an older set. Sometimes you can find these things on eBay or Etsy, though, if you like the set. But I'm doing some birds and then I'm going to punch those out with circle punches. A blue one and a yellow one. And I want to add a little pink too here. And I don't have the rose red ink pad, but I'm going to use the marker to get that color for my flower and then just fill in the center with yellow. And the yellow I'm using is Daffodil Delight. The blue was, I think it's an old color called Brocade Blue. And I've got Creative Memory circle cutters. I also have a circle punch. And I tried this with the Creative Memory circle cutter, and you're going to see that it's awfully big. So it's just too big. So I'm going to end up punching that one at the top down and making it a little bit smaller. We'll lose some of the branch, but that's okay. We'll still get the effect. And we're going to add some stickers to those as well. I have today on one of them and tomorrow on the other to kind of show that forward-thinking idea that goes along here with the theme. And I'm adding a few enamel dots. I spent a lot of time on these enamel dots getting the right ones. I discovered that I am out of yellow after this page, so I'm going to have to add that to my list. I've got so many enamel dots, but you know, you always seem to run out of certain colors.
Alright, here's our sketch, and instead of doing the butterfly, we did the birds, and we did them cut in circles, and I kind of scattered my dots out instead of going across because I had so much going on here. I felt like I needed to cover this corner down here, and then did just a plain mat on the photo, and got our journaling in. So we have everything kind of the way it was planned. Went ahead and curved this title, since we could, going across there. Not totally happy with my enamel dots. I still may move some around or add a couple before I make the final photo of the page, but otherwise I'm really pleased with it. I think it's a really pretty page, it's a very happy page, and that's positive, and that's kind of what I wanted to go for here. So thanks so much for watching today. If you do a lot with 6x6 pads or want to do more with 6x6 pads, I hope you'll check out my sensational 6x6 paper techniques class. And stay tuned for more videos as we do lots of fun things this summer. Thanks for watching.